Unsupermarket. Welcome back to the Unsupermarket podcast, where we talk food and farming and stuff you don't hear from Colesworth. I'm Jane.
And I'm Lee, and we are here once again doing what we do best, Jane, talking until we eventually get to the point.
Which is to Unsupermarket. Why? Because, let's be honest, Lee, supermarkets have really had their spin doctors. We'd rather talk to humans who actually grow your food.
And not just grow it, Jane, but for us and our food community, we're fighting tooth and nail to keep our farmers growing.
That's right. We want to have them in business. And you know, Lee, if resilience was an Olympic sport, every medal would go to an Aussie farmer. And as we all know, without a farmer, we have no food. Often farming it's a family partnership. And this is something that we tend to forget. You might have one family member juggling the farm books and another doing the farming. And the kids even get involved. The weather has a say. And somehow they seem to show up at the Royal Easter Show, the local markets, and many still, this is true, baking scones for the Country Women's Association.
Indeed, Jane, the level of grit needed is just insane. The average farmer's day, I think, must start well before sunrise. Well, I know starts well before sunrise. And here we are thinking how many times we can hit the snooze button. And the conversations we've had with them when it gets rough. And we're talking about the floods, the droughts, the fires, pandemics, things we've all read about and seen about and some of us experienced. The farmers still turn up to work through all of that, Jane.
Yeah, the mental strength that they have to have. It's not just the physical work. And, you know, it's hard to imagine what it's like, you know, working your guts out months and months, and then suddenly, boom, the floodwaters roll in and take the lot, or the drought, as is the case in South Australia and parts of Victoria at the moment. But one of the things I have been reading about is ingenuity of some of the farmers creating side hustles out of necessity.
Like?
Well, I love, for instance, turning waste into something. Local brewing company in Melbourne, they have a project called Eco Crumb, and they upcycle surplus bread into beer, dehydrating and milling the bread into a kind of a crumb that substitutes, or at least partially substitutes, grain in the brewing. And they also add orange peel into it as well. And it's a little bit like the interview that we're going to have on this podcast with Gerrad Saad. He does side shoots for the broccoli, which supermarkets will not have on their shelves.
Exactly, Jane. It's like, oh, you think this is rubbish? Mate, this is a delicacy. Farmers are basically the real deal upcyclers, I say.
Yep. Farmers are out there recycling actual food systems.
Jane, at this point, we have to talk about the climate. We've touched on it. Actually, we've spoken about it a lot. But because farmers are on the front line of this whole mess, like the weather forecast isn't just small talk to them, it's their livelihood.
Yeah, the weather, partly cloudy with a chance of ruining your entire growing season.
But somehow they adapt. The optimism and, as we've already mentioned, Jane, the mental health side, the mental strength that they need, because when your life's tied to something you cannot control, like the weather, global markets, it takes a toll, doesn't it?
Yeah, and isolation doesn't help either.
And that's where community comes in. When farmers have supportive neighbours, groups like Box TV, it can change things. Suddenly you're not alone and you're being heard. You can tell your story.
Yep, and that can literally keep people farming when they're ready to pack it in. Box TV is just one of them that will show what actually is involved in farming. It's so important.
So with these things in mind, we went and we had a chat with a fellow who has lived all of this, from floods, resilience, side shoots, and everything in between. We're talking about Gerrad Saad, and trust us, his story is a ripper about resilience, community, and finding a purpose in farming when the odds are really stacked against you.
Yep, so stick around, grab a cuppa, maybe some broccoli if you're so inclined, and enjoy this chat with Gerrad.
Hello, I'm Gerrad Saad. This is our family property. We've been here since 1961, and we're here in Wilberforce, New South Wales, along the Hawkesbury River, and we're basically now in the Hawkesbury Valley. Before I went into farming, I was a futures broker in the city, and worked in Treasury for about 20 years, and then come back to the land after that stint. My family have been here for 3 generations now, and had a love of the land. Worked in the city for many years, but by the time I came to 40, was always going to come back and that's when I really felt like it was time to come back. So I've been back now for 14 years. I have 3 children, so 2 girls and a boy. They're young, 10 to 14, so they're quite young still. No interest in the farm just yet, but they do love being out here, but whether it's a profession for them, time will tell. We grew Desiree potatoes one year and it was a record yield, over 20 tonnes an acre, and was quite profitable, so that was great. Potatoes, the yields vary so differently from season to season, field to field, so you know, that's the challenge of growing potatoes, and what makes it so addictive to doing it is, you know, you could dig a 10 tonne acre crop, you could dig a 20 tonne acre crop, and it's just, you know, good management. The weather can go with you, it can go against you. Things like broccoli, it's always a pretty standard yield. Sweet corn, crops like that, beetroot, the yields don't vary much. But potatoes is the big challenge, and can be so varied. So if you get, you know, rain, you can irrigate a lot, but sometimes rainfall is quite essential. You can grow a good crop in irrigation, but you really need the rain and the nitrogen in the rain to grow a good crop. It's so important to have good general rain at the right time, but with Mother Nature, it's not always the timing that's perfect. So you're just going to have to get on them, get the crops in the ground, and work in with what the weather gives you. It's not, you can't just sort of say, well, I won't plant this year because the weather's going to be a little bit, prediction is going to be a bit different, because you never know what's going to come with the weather. They said 2 years ago, we were after a triple La Nina, we were going to get a hot, dry spell, and well, look how wet this year and last year, and how cool the winters have been. It's totally blown that, you know, out of the water. Yeah. 14 years ago, I would have just concentrated on potatoes and broccoli, some corn. Now we're growing pumpkin, cabbages. Beetroot's been very good. Moving into carrot production now, Dutch carrots. Things like cabbages have been good here because it's just too far to cart them from interstate. The cost of the freight doesn't warrant growing them and shipping them into Sydney from other states. So we've got a bit of a niche here for that. We used to grow a lot of washed red potatoes here in the 80s and 90s, but now South Australian, the red potatoes are so much better skin condition and colour, well, just blemish free, grown on the desert soils out in the Mallee and so forth. So we can't compete with their quality of skin colour for red washed potatoes, so we're basically out of that game, but we're looking at, you know, beetroot now as an alternative. So yeah, soil health's important, rotating crops, because diseases build up in the ground over time because you're constantly farming the ground. So
what sort of diseases?
Well, for brassicas, there's a disease called club root. It affects the roots in the warmer weather. It makes them look like a club out of, you know, the Flintstone, I guess, like a club. You're left with a small plant and a small product to harvest. So we've been fortunate on our farm not to have much of it. We've got quite clean paddocks. So here in our area, you know, we grow one brassica crop on the field every year. So whether it be a cabbage, a collie, or a broccoli, it gets one brassica crop, that's it. And then we'll rotate it to corn or pumpkin or potatoes in the summer. But down in Werribee in Victoria, they can plant broccoli after broccoli, 3 crops a year, year in, year out. Because of the cool weather, the disease doesn't seem to be a problem down there. Whereas if we did that here, it would be just, it'd be disaster. The disease would build up over time, and then you couldn't farm, couldn't grow brassicas here anymore. So yeah, because we're in a more tropical climate here, it doesn't work. It only affects brassicas, yeah. So a lot of those oriental vegetables, bok choy and so forth, they're brassica crops, it affects them as well. We basically keep the paddocks, the fields clean, because if you don't, you build up a bank of weed seeds, and you're just continually battling weeds. So the aim is to keep the farm clean. But we're pretty intensive cropping here, so we're out with one crop, we're in with another crop within a few weeks or month or two. We have grown a few cover crops, so like a forage sorghum, and chop it in the ground, and it just provides more humus and matter for the bacteria to feed on, so the bacteria can break down the fertiliser and feed the plants. We grow a fair bit of sweet corn, and you know, that's sweet corn. It's not the most profitable crop, but it's good for the ground. So it's a good rotation crop for the ground, especially when you come in and plant broccoli or potatoes afterwards. So
When you harvest, do you leave a lot of the plant matter?
yeah, all the plant matter, we call it the trash. In farming terms, it's called the trash. So a lot of the trash just stays, we chop it in the ground and it breaks up over the following months. We don't plough too deep because we're on a floodplain here. There's always a risk of erosion come a flood. Multiple ploughing was always popular back in the day because multiple ploughing tipped the soil over, you buried the weed seeds. It did flick the disease around in the ground. If you had any disease, it would spread it. So I think, my Uncle Harry was the first in the district to ditch the multiple plough and went with the ripper and a retro combination. And yeah, all the other farmers followed suit in the early 70s with that and in the mid 70s. So the moldboard was gone, and it's still good to moldboard sometimes because it brings up some fresh ground. But no, now we just generally, ripper is just long steel tines that go down in the ground about a foot, tear up the ground, tear up the compaction, and then a rotary hoe will just chop up, make a fine seed bed for the you need a fine seed bed, you need fine ground around a seed to germinate and grow. If the ground's loose and open, the seed won't get the moisture, it won't hold the moisture and germinate and make a good plant. The same with the broccoli transplants. You need to have good chopped up ground that's fairly fine, not overly fine, because overly fine, the ground will just, when you water it, just packs up and the water won't infiltrate. So you've got to have a fairly consistent, not too cloddy, not fine, but fine enough that the soil will hang around the transplanted roots. So when you water, the moisture gets in and it gets away, otherwise they'll dry out and struggle. We use compound fertilisers, which are made in a factory, you could say, processed from gas. The nitrogen's progressed from gas and natural gas in that field. So, and phosphorus is mined, phosphate rock and so forth. So, and that's all blended to make our fertilisers. We do have organic manures, but I tend to steer away from them because a lot of the organic manures have weed seeds, like the animal, maybe it's chicken manure, chicken's been fed grain from grain properties, and a lot of the seeds are ingested and pass through, and you end up getting the seeds in your fields here. And it's always a bit too much nitrogen, I find, with those. It's hard to get a good consistent level of nutrition from those organic fertilisers. So we'll stick with the chemical, the chemical type fertilisers. They give me more control over what nutrient I'm putting in the ground. Really, the only crop here that pollination's a big thing would be pumpkins, and a well-pollinated pumpkin crop will put on more pumpkins. Sweet corn, yeah, pollination is essential to fill the cob out all the way down. Basically, the pollen from the top of the cornstalk falls onto the silks. So each silk is attached to a kernel. It's a sexual reproduction. So pollen fertilises the silk. Silk makes the kernel. Pollination is essential to get that cob to fill out perfectly. And if you go down there early in the mornings, the pollen, it's like a very light mustardy coloured powder, and it just falls gently down in the mornings. It falls down. So we don't irrigate corn in the mornings because that's when the pollination's getting done most actively. Yeah. So I know a couple of years ago we had some rampant heat in January. There was 2 years there where we had bad heat in December and January, and the corn tassels were burning and the pollen wasn't forming and it wasn't falling onto the silk. So we had cobs with kernels missing. Half the cob was bare, and so pollination of sweet corn is important. Through the winter we don't spray any pesticides at all, but come the spring, comes the pestilence, and you want a commercial crop, you've got to spray. And if the people want a nice looking vegetable or fruit in the shop, it's just the way it is. Yeah. Over the other side of the Blue Mountains, we know we've had there's a pest, the fall armyworm, that we've had in sweet corn the last 4 years now. And it come down from the Torres Strait into Australia and never been here before. And it's got a voracious appetite for corn, and damn thing just flew. They identified it in Queensland, and within a month they found it in Victoria. So I remember when it first hit here, was late in the season, and the corn had, these grubs were eating the corn. It's like, gee, they're eating pretty voraciously, eating the cobs, and we'd never seen it before, and it wasn't until sort of the next season that people really understood what it was and where it had come from and what it was. So we've had it now for 4 years. You don't get it too badly here before Christmas, but it seems to come in the wind from inland in around Christmas time, and it doesn't stay in here. It doesn't sort of hibernate in the ground here or anything. We're chopping up the ground anyway, so we chop up any pupae that's sort of in the ground, but it's been hard to control, and we've got to spray it pretty consistently to keep it under control. Otherwise, we just won't have a commercial crop of sweet corn, and that's right up and down the eastern seaboard now. They say overseas it attacks other crops. We haven't seen it here yet. It's just got a taste for maize and sweet corn and things like sorghum. So it's become a real challenge for corn, and some growers have dropped out. A lot of growers have dropped out because it's just not viable to grow it anymore. It's so hard to control it. It sits in the middle of the corn plant, and it'll sit there from when the corn's a couple of weeks old, and it just won't get out. It stays in the whole plant and just keeps eating till the corn's mature.
Yeah.
The farmers help each other out a bit. If someone's got too much produce, we're down the markets, you can help me move a few broccoli today or something. I've had, you get someone to say, can you help me move a bit of this, or, so we help each other where we can. The flood times we help each other evacuate if we have to. So, yeah.
So you've been flooded here before?
Oh yeah, 3 times in the last 4 years. Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
How long does it take after a flood to get back?
A couple of weeks for the ground to dry out.
Okay.
Where we're standing now, the water was probably another 10 feet above us from here, a bit higher. Yep. It introduces some fresh silt from the bottom of the river. Wild radish that sort of spread it through the farm. I feel after the flood, we had a bit of other weeds that have come in on my farm that hadn't been there before. Because we're surrounded by a lot of turf farms, there was couch grass that ended up in my fields, and you've just got to go around with a knapsack and spray them here and there to try and control them and get them out again. So, yeah. Irrigation will pump from the river. We've got allocations that we bought, my father and my uncles bought with these farms back in the day. So we've got licensed allocations to pump water from the river, and that's metered. Where every hectare on this farm has a set amount of water per hectare allocated to it as a licence that's registered with New South Wales Water. Farms have got allocations that got them, and if you don't have them, you have to buy one from another farmer who's got it on his land. You'd have to buy so many megalitres permanent licence, or you can rent the water. You could say to the farmer, well, I need X amount of megalitres from your licence this year, and they can basically sell you an annual amount of water. But if you're on a farm without a water licence now and you went to buy a licence, it's pretty hard. You have to buy one from another farmer, and they're not cheap. They're basically allocated certain sections of the river. So if you wanted to buy one 10 kilometres upstream from here, from this farm, you couldn't get it. The licences in this part of the valley belong to this part of the valley, and that's it. Because it's flood zone here, we grew up in town, but we come out every day to work. So yeah, it's great working with your dad, and growing up with the family was great. It was one of the highlights of the family working together, was a big thing. So my son's 10, he's going to start coming out a bit now and working with me. So bonding with your dad's a big thing on the farm. Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. Gerrad giving us the real story from the paddock.
Big thanks to Gerrad for sharing his story. All right, legends, that's us done for this episode of Unsupermarket. And don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends. They'd love to hear these stories.
We'll be back next time cooking with Tammy a delicious broccoli, corn, and chorizo. I love that stuff. Pasta dish.
Yum. Until then, eat your broccoli, hug your farmer and say, ah.